listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What is up? Hope everyone is great, and thank you as ever for choosing to listen to the Straight to Video podcast. First up, kind of random, but I've never addressed this on the show, I don't think, but it's been brought up quite a few times recently. Does it seem strange to some of you that the show is called Straight to Video, but is primarily an audio podcast? I get that, but I do suppose in my defense, when I started the show, it was an extension and new branch to what you might call my Straight to Video brand, which I'd had as a musical project for over 10 years now, and it just seemed like the really logical step to carry the name on. Also, when the podcast began, it was around the big boom of people starting shows, so everything seemed to be a mix of audio and video. Definitely in the last couple of years, though, there's been a massive focus on video podcasts, so I think that's become the norm, whereas I still think of a podcast as an audio format for the most part. So yeah, I guess if you're coming across the show these days, the title might seem a little odd, perhaps, and a bit of a curveball to some. I don't know, just thought I should address it. But there are a whole bunch of video clips on the STV Podcast YouTube page, including one with today's guest, Matt Scannell, singer and guitarist of the band Vertical Horizon. I'm not sure how well known Vertical Horizon are here in the UK, but over in the US, when they broke in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were huge. All I gotta put out there is the single Everything You Want, which is from the album of the same name, which is celebrating 25 years this year with a vinyl re-release and a bunch of tour dates. Well, that single hit the #1 spot on the US Billboard Chart and became the most played song of that year, which is really insane. I heard the band whilst on holiday with my wife Jane in Florida and really fell in love with their hooks and big choruses. Some of you, though, might remember the song You're a God, which was heavily featured in the Jim Carrey movie Bruce Almighty. As always, the Straight to Video podcast is proudly presented to you in association with Affinity Photo, an incredible piece of photo edited software, which I've been using for graphic design the past couple of years. Affinity Photo is used to create the podcast episode art what you see each week, and it's an extremely affordable alternative to other programs on the market, so please check them out at affinity.serif.com. Now, Matt was a real treat to chat with. Wish we'd had more time to talk, to be honest, as there was a lot of stuff we didn't get to dive into, including his friendship with Richard Marx, and would have loved to have got more into his old school influences, which we dive into a little bit. But as you'll hear, Matt is a lot of fun, so I'm sure there'd be a bunch of other cool stuff he could share. Maybe if he can make it to the UK, we can pick up where we left off, but right now, please enjoy my Straight to Video chat with Vertical Horizon's Matt Scannell.
Hello.
It always seems forever, doesn't it, when you click on that audio thing where you're waiting for it to come on.
I was like, what is going on? And then I realized that this was connected to my phone. It's like I need an engineering degree just to be able to talk to somebody.
It's just those awkward few seconds where you see those little dots go.
Yeah.
How are you, Matt? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for rescheduling with me. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. How was the tour?
You know what? It was really good. We had a great time. We played some beautiful, beautiful venues. You know, this thing happens when sort of both Gin Blossoms and Toad the White Sprocket are sort of bigger bands than we are. They do more business than we do. But when you add the three bands together, it's not just 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. It's like 4 or 5. And that's really, really cool.
Nice. And it was like a whole evening's entertainment for people. I'd love to see something like that come to the UK.
Oh, man. One of these days, it's a real, crusade that I'm on to try to get back to the UK. But it's hard, man. I don't know why. It's just like no one wants to make the offer. They don't want to, get us all the way across and then not have it sell well,
I don't want to scare you, but I saw two of my favourite bands in the UK a couple of years ago, Soul Asylum and Everclear. And there was probably 60, 70 people there. I was like, what?
That's brutal.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, they left the tour quite late to announce it. Only had maybe like 6 to 8 weeks to promote it. But I was like, this is insane.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess at a certain point, it's like, you should just be grateful for what you have, I
mean, it was an amazing gig. I walked straight to the front. I was just watching Dave Perner.
Yeah.
This guy.
He's really nice, too. Dave is a really sweet guy. I don't know if you've ever met him, but he's a really lovely guy.
Someone who's been around for so long like yourself, but still like so humble and cool. And...
Yeah, we did a gig with them up in some crazy place in Canada on the East Coast, St. John's. Where were we? I don't even know where we were. Whatever. Far away from me in California. And sure enough, we were all staying at the same hotel, and the guys from Sugar Ray were there and stuff. And Dave was just so sweet, man. He was just, you never know, like a lot of these super iconic guys, in a way, it's like I'm almost like shy and like I don't want to bug them. I certainly don't want to be like intruding on their moment, whatever it is that they're doing. But he was like, hey man, how you doing? Nice to meet you. It was like, oh, cool. Thanks.
I love it.
Wait, tell me about those basses over there. What's going on there, Rob?
Yeah, that's my Mexican jazz bass, which I've had I got it in the early 2000s, I think. I was saying to somebody the other day, it's probably considered vintage now.
Yeah, I think it is. You, sir, have a vintage bass. And what's the significance of 74?
Just the year I was born.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ryan Roxy, who plays for Alice Cooper. He used to be in Electric Angels in the day, and he did like the Roxy 77 thing. So,
oh, cool.
I was in a band with another Rob, so it got really confusing. So I just added the 74.
Love it. Love it. That's great.
I'm like a hired gun over here for a lot of bands. So I played in you probably know Bullet Boys from back in the day.
Yeah, of course, sure.
When they came to the UK, I played bass for them and been to the US with them and stuff like
that.
Oh,
wicked, man. Oh, that's great. Good for you, man. So you've done this crazy thing.
Yeah, not on your level, but...
Sounds to me like you have.
We've dived straight in, man. I appreciate this.
Let's do it.
So it's unbelievably 25 years since the album and song Everything You Want was released back in 1999. Does that seem like a whole other lifetime ago thinking back, or has it gone fast?
So the answer to both questions is yes. So it does seem like ages ago, and frankly, it is ages ago now at this point. But also I've been there every step of the journey. So the short answer is, man, it's all a blur. And then you start to drill down and you're like, wow, it's been quite a journey. It's not easy to keep this thing going, right? So every step is considered and kind of like, all right, let's keep this going, keep the dream alive. And yet at the same time, I think, the overall feeling is, wow, we created something that stood the test of time. And that's a pretty beautiful thing.
Absolutely, man. I mean, one way you're marking the anniversary is the album being released on vinyl. I guess that wouldn't happen back in the day. Was it even available on cassette?
I seem to recall that it was available on cassette, that beautiful format. But it was certainly not available on vinyl. And I think there are a couple other pressings that RCA did over the years that are out there. But this one is the translucent orange and pretty cool vibe. And I'm very grateful to them for making that happen.
Was you a big vinyl guy growing up?
I was. So I was born in 1970. So it was vinyl records in my house until the advent of the CD, whenever that was. So I think maybe I was 16 or 17 when I got a CD player, if I remember. So yeah, up to that point, it would have been all vinyl. My first vinyl record was Billy Joel, Glass Houses. And then my second vinyl record was Pyromania by Def Leppard. I'd be up in my room just listening to records more or less all day long, playing with my tennis racket, pretending to be playing guitar. And then eventually, as time wore on, actually playing guitar to some degree or another.
The title track from the album, Everything You Want, such a great story to it. You've mentioned it quite a few times that it came to you while sleeping. The opening riff came to you in your sleep. Didn't bother to record it.
Nope.
And just went back to sleep.
Yep.
As you were confident you remember it. That usually never happens. I mean, those ideas always disappear, which I think is so strange, because once an incredibly hooky melody or lyric is finally recorded and released, they become earworms and you can't get rid of them. So I always find that so interesting that they disappear when the songwriter hears them.
No, it's a really good point. And I think it's probably because they are so new and malleable. And I think you can nudge it or you can document it in the way that is actually the best way. Or you can kind of, in the process, kind of screw it up a little bit and make it less hooky. So sometimes you get it and you snag it like the biggest fish and you're like, oh my gosh, I got you, and that's the way Everything You Want worked out.
Do you think it had changed from when you originally came up with it and when you woke up the next morning?
So in fairness, I heard the riff, rolled over, went back to sleep. Heard the chords underneath the riff, rolled over, went back to sleep. Heard the whole chorus in my head, all the lyrics, guitar parts, drum part, more or less the bass lines sounded like basically the record in my head. And that's when, so it would have been like an hour after the first bit, I heard that. But then I was like, oh man, it's, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm up there feverishly writing, recording with a little back to cassettes, micro cassette recorder is what I used at the time. And then, I kind of landed it, as it were.
That song, once released, it achieved a bunch of amazing accolades, not only hitting number one in the US, but held the record for the longest time to get to number one, which I think that is even more important. Some songs come into the charts, particularly here in the UK, straight and then gone.
Yes.
But yours just kept gaining momentum. How was that for you watching it climbing? Was you out on the road? Where was you? Was you getting phone calls saying, this thing is really taking off?
We were on the road because we just were constantly on the road at that time and just really trying to promote the record and see if we could continue the sort of upward trajectory for the song. And I was getting phone calls, like my mom would call me, I heard it 10 times today. And then the next day, I heard it 11 times today. I think it's doing better. That was like, my mom was my version of the Billboard Charts. She was my boots on the ground. And the label, to their credit, it was a battle. It was like a long battle. We got to try to keep this thing moving forward. And they really, RCA at that time really were behind us and they helped make it happen. I mean, anytime I talk about this song and the sort of success that this song had, I have to mention that there was a team of people at the record label, at, radio, at VH1 and MTV, all these different people who believed in the song and were willing to kind of like give of their bandwidth and give some support to it. So it's a wonderful record I don't believe we hold it anymore, but that record of like taking the longest to get to number one is truly great because it just means it really stuck around for a while.
Was it the most played song of 2000?
Yeah, it was the most played song of that year. Yeah, crazy. I mean, really, really crazy. And especially now, now that I look back on it and have the perspective that I do so many years later, it's like, wait, what are the odds of that happening? I mean, it's impossible. There's an old Mainer expression, people from Maine. I grew up in New England and Massachusetts. And so just north of Massachusetts is the great state of Maine. And there's a Mainer expression that if a tourist stops a Mainer along a road and asks them for directions to a certain place, the Mainer will say, well, you can't get there from here. And so all my life, I've had this sort of like, well, you can't get there from here is a thing that I've heard in my head many, many times. And it turns out you kind of can get there, but most of the time it's not going to go easily. It's going to be a struggle. But if I really actually think on it, you can't have a number one song. I'm not trying to be negative here, but the truth of the matter is like the odds are very much against you that you won't get there from here. And so when I look back on it now, I realize just how incredibly fortunate we are and we were to have had this amazing experience. I mean, I was in a bookstore a couple of years back and I saw a Billboard book of number one songs. And you go through and you're looking, of course, I wanted to look and see if my song was in there. And you look through and you see all these Elvis tracks and Beatles tracks and Pink Floyd and Madonna and all these amazing artists. And then I'm in there too.
It's like you're expecting them to miss you out.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll be in the next printing. They'll catch it next time.
Hey, that's an album title or a song lyric, though. Surely you can't get there from here.
Yeah. Well, there's an old comedy duo, Bert and I. If you ever feel the sort of desire to check out what that old Mainer humor is, Bert and I, very, very, very funny stuff. That's where I heard that you can't get that from here thing. It's really great. Oh, yeah, it's great. But I got there.
Yes.
I got there, yes. Rob.
Did you actually play the UK in 2000?
We did, yeah. We played, I want to say we went over there twice. Shepherd's Bush Empire, maybe? Is that a place?
There's two listings on Setlist FM.
Okay.
There's the Shepherd's Bush Empire and there's the Underworld in Camden.
Oh, man, I'll tell you, it breaks my heart because woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? So we started to go over there. The record company basically brought us over and said, okay, well, let's see if we can set up a couple gigs for you. And loved it. I loved it. I had so much fun and was just thinking, well, I might move here, feeling like these are my people, like whatever with all those other places back in the States. I think the UK. And then it just, because we were just pushing. I think all of us were kind of we were almost out of gas. And if I could do it again, I would just say, hey, buck up, little camper, give it another 6 or 8 months. But at the same time, it is what it is, right? You got to forgive yourself. But I think in hindsight, it was certainly a mistake we made to not give it another couple shots, because also, like Europe, we were over in Germany, we played Paris, Amsterdam, and some beautiful, beautiful places that could have maybe turned into something for us. And it's unfortunate that we weren't able to make that happen or able to put in the time and energy to see if it would flourish over there. So it is what it is.
Both of those venues are still there if you ever want to come back.
Oh, dude. Actually, Rob, the funny thing is what I want to do is I want to go back to the UK, and I actually want to just bring my acoustic guitar. I'll go by myself and I'll just go to some pub somewhere that will have me, and I'll play my songs and I'll do a show.
That would be awesome.
And if there's another pub in the UK that will have me, I don't need to make any money. Nobody needs to really pay for anything. I just would love the opportunity to do it, because I see it all the time on our Instagram, which is Official Vertical Horizon, if you don't mind me plugging, Facebook, which is Official Vertical Horizon, and X, our Twitter page is @Vertical Horizon. But I see comments all the time. When are you coming back to the UK? When are you coming back to the UK? And I feel so bad because I really, really want to. So I've talked to our booking agents about it. I know this is whatever. I have to say this to you though, Rob, because I would love to do it. So yeah, if I can just get over there with my acoustic guitar, go play I would play in someone's living room if we can have other people, the people who contact me frequently enough on Instagram and those other outlets. I would just love to have them have the opportunity to actually see that I really do want to do this. But anyways, enough of that.
You need to tap up Mr. Marks next time he comes over on one of his acoustic tours.
Oh, man, it's funny. He played the Royal Albert Hall a few months ago, and John Oates opened up for him. I remember thinking, what can I do to that John Oates to get him to miss his flight,
One day, sir, one day. Matt, I don't want to keep you too long, but before we go, I want to touch on a few things. Around the time the band blew up, the late 90s, early 2000s, for me personally, I was really struggling to find a hard rock band with big hooks. Then you came along when I heard you when we was on vacation in Florida with me and my wife. I've been listening to bands like Goo Goo Dolls, so you kind of slotted right alongside.
Yep.
My attraction to you guys makes sense because I since learned you're a big late 80s hard rock guy. You mentioned Pyromania by Def Leppard, but you love Winger, Rat, Motley Crue. How deep did you dive into all those bands?
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, I think Lay It Down is one of my favorite guitar riffs of all time. Really, I play that riff all the time. No, I love that. I love the Winger stuff. I was always bummed that Winger kind of got slagged off with Beavis and Butthead thing and all that. I know it was excessive and it was all those things. But White Snake, I remember calling, I want to say it was after Nirvana and grunge and all of that changed the definition of what is cool. I remember when Steve Vai was playing with White Snake and there was that, I think it was called Slip of the Tongue. And I remember calling the radio station in Washington, D.C., asking to hear, I don't remember what the single was, but I remember calling and asking for the single, WJFK. And they're like, you want to hear what? And I'm like, I want to hear the new White Snake with Steve Vai. And they're like, all right, you don't want to hear Soundgarden's latest cooler song? I'm like, no. But yeah, no, all that stuff. I was really obsessed. I'm a huge Rush fan. It really is my favorite band. Their songs came a little bit more from the head as opposed to the groin. But I love both sides of it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was into all that stuff. Dude, smooth up in you, man. Smooth up in you. Come on.
Who did you see live back in the day?
So Van Halen was my first show.
What tour?
That was the Diver Down tour. And Eddie he was wearing a cast because he had broken his elbow or something. So he played the whole show with a cast on and played things that no one, certainly I, could ever possibly play ever in best case scenario. And Eddie's got a stupid cast on his arm and he's shredding and jumping around like a maniac. It was just tremendous. It was a tremendous, tremendous show. I don't think I really saw, I saw Rush basically every tour and my concert going funds were limited. So I never got to see Rat, but I loved Rat. I still love Rat.
Stephen Pierce is touring all over the US, so you need to keep an eye on his tour dates.
So I was at a guitar shop here in Los Angeles, Norm's Rare Guitars, which is a very famous vintage guitar shop. I was in there picking up an old, I think it was a 56 Gibson Les Paul Custom, which was a total dream guitar of mine. And when I was in the shop, I'm sort of looking over in the corner. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Warren DeMartini. Warren DeMartini's right there. And he's walking towards me, and I'm holding this guitar that I'm like totally in love with. He's walking, he's looking at it. I'm looking at him. He's looking at the guitar. He's like, hey man, are you buying that? I'm like, you're Warren DeMartini. You're Warren DeMartini. He's like, oh man, that's cool. Can I check it out? I'm like, you're Warren DeMartini. You're Warren DeMartini. Handing him the guitar. I might have been drooling. I mean, honestly, like it was just everything. My brain was shutting down. And then he sat down and we talked for a minute, and he's like, oh man, Robin Crosby used to own one of these. It sounded so great. I always loved it when he would play that. This is a really cool guitar, man. Congratulations. And honestly, he hands it back to me and I'm like, you're Warren DeMartini. You're Warren DeMartini. I don't know that I actually really said anything to one of my heroes. But if you go back and listen to his solos now, it makes sense that Frank Zappa thought highly of his playing. It's like, he really changed the game. Well, evolved the game. Like he thought outside the pentatonic blues box in a way that a lot of those other guys really didn't. And, a really, really impressive player. Really impressive player. Oh, Dokken. I was a huge Dokken fan. Enormous Dokken fan. And George Lynch actually became a friend of mine. I mean, just a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous guitar player. And what a guy. Just such a sweetheart. Lovely guy.
Matt, I'll let you go. We'll chat about this next time you come over for the acoustic club tour.
Sounds good. I'll bring my snakeskin covered Charvel and we'll rock out.
Massive thank you to Matt Scannell of Vertical Horizon for chatting with me on this week's Straight to Video podcast. Lovely guy, and I really hope some UK dates can happen sometime soon to celebrate 25 years of the album and song Everything You Want. Be sure to check out verticalhorizon.com and follow the band on all their social media platforms. So in just over a week, October the 5th, Tape Stock 2 will be hitting the 80s video shop in Overton, Derbyshire, just 10 minutes from junction 28 of the M1. It's held in conjunction with TVC, the Video Club Facebook group, and we'll be having a whole day of VHS-related fun with tape sales and trades, screenings in the movie room, and just a great chance for VHS fans from all over the country to meet up. The event runs from midday until late, and admission is free, so really hope some of you can attend. Be sure to follow the 80s Video Shop on whatever social media platform you use, and catch you then. So that's it for this week's episode of the podcast. So until we chat again, make sure to always be kind, please rewind and unwind, and I'll speak to you all real soon.